on sale from the store, or if you have chickens and you just get too many eggs in the summer like we do. We only have 9 hens, but sometimes it just kind of gets out of hand. Sometimes we sell a little bit of eggs here and there, and sometimes we freeze them. So these are some of the eggs, and it's very simple. All you need is your eggs, obviously, a blender, and little sandwich-sized Ziploc bags. That's all you need. Is crack 2 of the eggs into the blender. I always do them by 2s because that's a common amount that you need for baking. And if you only need 1 for some reason, you just use half of what you got in there. Okay, the next step is easy but very important. You have to blend this. I'm going to put it on low, and I'm going to use the very lowest setting on the blender. You don't want to blend this to get air bubbles in it, because then you're going to get freezer burn on your eggs. That's it. And if you look in here, the white and the yolk are blended together, and I did get a little bit of bubbles in there, but oh well. And then you just open up your bag and pour your eggs in. Then when you close up the bag, you want to try to get as much air out of there as possible. So I kind of fold it over like that, try to get some of those air bubbles out. Then we go to the freezer and lay this flat in the freezer, just like this. And once they're all frozen, you can take them and stack them in a container like this. You've got easy to grab 2 egg baggies in here. Thaw them out. You can use, just bring it to the sink and kind of move it around under some lukewarm water for a couple minutes and it'll be thawed. Then you can use them in recipes, or sometimes we'll cook scrambled eggs either in the pan or in a mug in the microwave, which is kind of...
Here are a few tips to make sure your frozen food lasts. First, make sure you cool your food down to room temperature before freezing. Otherwise, the food won't freeze properly. Avoid trapping air with your frozen food. Air is not your friend when freezing, and it can cause freezer burn and spoil your food. Make sure to wrap and store your food as tightly as possible with parchment and plastic wrap. Label all your frozen food with the item and date. This way, you know exactly what's in your freezer and you know when you put it there. You can freeze your loose foods by laying them flat on a baking sheet. You can take your fruits and vegetables, put them on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, and put them in the freezer. Once frozen, store them in a freezer bag. This will prevent clumping. Thaw your frozen food by using the refrigerator. It may take a little bit longer, but it is a very safe method to defrost your food. Next, if your microwave has a defrost setting, it's great to defrost leftovers. Just remember, with raw food, it may start to cook it partially, so you have to use it right away. And last, you can use any frozen food that's sealed in a package, cover it with water, and then change the water every 30 minutes or so, just until that food defrosts.
Slice, dice, and freeze. With these steps, it's gonna save you a ton of time and a ton of money. And guess what? When you get ready to cook, it's gonna be super easy. I'm gonna show you how. Take your bell pepper, hold the knife at an angle, and just cut it down in a downward motion. And the goal is to keep as many seeds intact as possible. And there you go. Seeds left intact. See that? And then dice. Make sure your fingers are curved. Here's our fresh bell pepper that we just sliced, diced. Last step, we need to get ready to freeze. When it's time to freeze the peppers, I put them in these little resealable bags, and I make sure I write the date on it so I can keep up with how long it's been in there. Seal it up, and it's ready to go. Diced peppers. I also have some bell pepper that I did earlier. I did a kind of larger dice on this one, and then I did a slice and then a smaller dice. And not only can you do it with bell pepper, but you can also do it with onion. I have some onions here that I diced up, and then I have some onions that I sliced. I got all this prep work done today, so I won't have to worry about doing any of this next week when it's time for me to do some cooking. So if you see me whip out a plastic bag full of onions and peppers, you'll know why. Here is a bag of poblanos that I had from last month, and I actually did the slice, dice, and freeze method on these. Now when I need poblano peppers, I got them.
Against freezer burn. Freezer burn is when the air comes into contact with the food and dehydrates it. So you want to take your fresh chicken breast, you want to put it into like a freezer foil, a container that's specifically made to withstand cold temperatures in the freezer, or a Ziploc bag or zippy bag.
Right.
Oh, you're doing an excellent job.
You really want to make this as airtight as possible.
That's right. You do not want to have the food to have any contact with the air. Yeah. Excellent. Good job.
Now, would you put this in there then after this?
You could if you wanted to, but it's actually not necessary. This is freezer
this is enough?
foil, so this is absolutely enough.
You just wouldn't know what's in there.
Right. Well, you have to make your little notes with your Marky pens now, wouldn't you?
Oh, okay. Where am I?
All right.
Bring the Marky pen. Okay.
Next up is perishable items.
Right.
Actually, things like bread, they only last 5 to 7 days on the counter.
Oh, yeah.
But if you toss them into the freezer, now remember, you got to take it out of the original packaging.
Take it out of there.
Put it into a Ziploc
A
bag.
real freezer bag.
And bread is actually really great. You can take individual slices, thaw them just a little, toast them up. You can eat them right then and there. It doesn't require a lot of defrost.
That's smart
time.
because, you know, we get green bread in our house.
So instead of buying frozen dinners, use your own leftovers, freeze them in the container you would actually toss into the oven. We put this into a casserole dish, our little chicken. That saves you time and energy later when you reheat it. When it comes to things like bread, it lasts up to a year. Ground meat, 4 months. When you have fish, it can last up to 6 months, which is great. A whole chicken, up to a year, and fresh fruits and vegetables. We can enjoy them all year long because you can save them for up to a year.
Milk. Freezing milk is an incredibly easy way to extend its shelf life. Thawed milk is perfectly safe to drink and is just as nutritious as fresh milk, so there's virtually no reason to let your milk go bad rather than freezing it. Freezing your milk. Leave room for your milk to expand. When milk freezes, it takes up a little more space than when it's liquid. On the other hand, if you've already drunk more than a cup or two of your milk, you can usually skip this step. Put the milk container in the freezer. You're all ready to freeze your milk. Simply set your labeled container in a freezer with a temperature below 0. When the milk is frozen, you may be able to see the separation of the milk and the fat. Don't worry, this is a normal part of the freezing process and is perfectly safe. Store for up to 2 to 3 months. Most sources recommend leaving your milk in the freezer for a maximum of either 2 or 3 months. Consider freezing in ice cube trays. As an alternative to freezing your milk in its container, you may want to consider pouring a portion into ice cube trays. This is an especially good choice for people looking to use their frozen milk in baking projects, as it allows you to quickly add semi-standard portions of milk to your recipe rather than having to chip away at a single solid block of milk or wait for it to thaw. Frozen milk cubes are also good for adding to glasses of fresh milk. They keep it cold, but won't dilute it when they melt like ordinary ice cubes.
Dude.